Hi! Welcome back, Fantasy Fiction Fanatics. It's great to see you again, and I hope you're doing really well. Today we are going to be doing the next 5 chapters, chapters 4 through 8, of the second portion of Dragons of Autumn Twilight. I hope you're still enjoying the book and that it is getting as interesting for you as it is for me. And let's see if we take a look at this book. We're getting even ever so close to the end of the first book. Still have a couple chapters, but not too bad. Maybe about 100 pages left. Yep, a little bit less than 100 pages left. So we're getting close to the end of book 1, and then we'll be able to move on to book 2. Alright, so let's go ahead. We're going to be doing, like I said, chapters 4 through 8 for today's discussion on the part of book 2 of book 1. So let's go ahead and start with our recap like always. So we start off this section today with continuing to be traveling in the cages because they were caught, and we recently had, at the end of the previous section, Fizbin was caught and also added to their cages for arguing with that tree who ended up being blocking his son, I believe it was. So they're continuing along. We're going to be sold to the mines to be slaves, and the elves end up attacking the caravan for the slave caravan, and they manage to break out and escape. So they escape towards the woods, which is where Qualanost is, and they end up going with the elves because of Goldmoon being able to save Theros, oh my gosh, all of a sudden his name is like a blank of like his last name. But Theros, we know who we're talking about, the guy who lost the arm. And when they go into the forest and they go into Qualanisti, they go ahead and have a meeting with the Speaker of the Suns, and we hear Gelthanos' story about like why he was in Solus and what was happening, as well as the fact that the elves are planning to abandon Qualanost and go ahead and leave the forest. And then we see the dynamics between Tanis and Laurana. We have the chapter that's just about the two of them and their history a little bit together. And then we have that the group decides to go to Pax Tharkis with Gilthanas in order to attack Lord Verminiard, who is the one who was in charge of the burning of Solus. And they start traveling, and they're going to the Sla Mori, which is the secret way, and they run into the battlefield where only Eben survived, and they end up being attacked by those Draconians. And they're on their way still to Pax Tharkis when we end the little section there. So, it's kind of, things about these chapters is that it's kind of like things happen, but at the same time things don't happen. We kind of learn stuff and we're moving the plot forward, but not a lot happens. And so today's discussion, I'm not sure exactly how it's going to go because like in length or whatever, but it might be a bit shorter today just because I know there's not quite as much to discuss as event-wise and things like that. It's not quite as rich of a set of chapters as some of the other ones are. So we're just going to go ahead and discuss some of the main points and ideas, and we'll just see where we go from there. Okay, so the first thing I thought we could discuss is another discussion on race, as in the elves. Because we did talk about the Gully Dwarves when they were prominent, and right now we kind of see not a tons about the elves, but we do have a bunch of these many chapters. At least 4 of them are in the elves domain, and we get to know a little bit more about them. And because we leave them so quickly, it's kind of like our main focus of what we get of the elves is in this little moment. It's not going to be like later we necessarily get a whole bunch more because we already are leaving the elves and they're planning on leaving their homeland. So we don't really see if we're going to be able to go back to them. So I wanted to discuss them now while we have the chance. And we had a couple of chapters where we were a little bit more invested in them and their problems and who they are. So, yeah, so let's go ahead and go over what we know about the elves at this point from what we've seen, like what kind of aspects we've seen of them. So they do save the prisoners from the slave caravan. But, so that's a big thing. But we do see afterward their treatment of those slaves, where they say, hey, you can't go with us, we're not going to provide you protection, we've already saved you from the caravan, now get going and save yourselves. So they do save the people, but then they're also like, okay, move along, you're saved, now go and try and make it on your own right after getting out, when you have no weapons, no combat fighting, you know, like you don't have anything, but we saved you, so our part is done. And then they also are not very friendly in the way that they saved the people there, because as we mentioned with the group, is that the arrows are just flying and flying and flying, and it is very easy to do friendly fire. And the fact that the arrows were coming into their cage, and they felt like they had to quickly escape the cage in order to get out of the way of the arrows. So even though the elves are attacking the people, the hobgoblins and draconians that are enslaving them, they're also not very careful to make sure that the people they are saving come out of it unharmed. And then we see that they are abandoning their home. Once we get farther into the forest and things like that, we see that they're having problems and that they have decided to abandon their home. So that's a very big thing and a very big impact, especially because from the way that Tanis is so surprising is that they have never ever left their homes. Like, it's very uncommon for them, it seems, to be out of the of Qualinisti in general, to be like where Gelthanas had to go to Solus. That's very unusual for an elf to venture outside the forest, let alone the whole group of them to completely leave. They make a comment about how none of the other races, including humans or dwarves, and definitely not the barbarians, had ever entered Qualinisti before the group that's coming in right now. So they are very secluded in their little area there. They don't have many guests, and it's very unusual for these races to come into, and they almost don't want to let in Goldmoon and Riverwind in specific, because they are barbarians and they are so at odds with that set of people. Just like Riverwind before had a lot of problems with Tanis because he is half elven. So we kind of see the dynamic goes both ways, even though we don't truly know why those dynamics are the way they are. They almost don't get let in just because of who they are, until Gelthanas mentions that Goldmoon is the one that saved Theros, which then, since she's a cleric, was allowed to enter the forest. They also would not team up with any of the other races to fight, like in the fact that they are just abandoning their house. They're not asking for anyone for help. They don't help anybody else out. They're not out there trying to fight with the humans or the dwarves or the barbarians or anybody else. They are strictly to themselves. They talk about how they have limited people, so they don't have anybody to send to help anybody, and they also aren't asking for any help. They're trying to make it so that way they are, in the conflict, they are on their own. They're not really accepting help, and they're not giving any help. And they're making excuses as to why they can't help more. We also see their disgust of Tanis, specifically, as that he is half elven. Even his brother Gelthanas, who he grew up with as a brother, and the person who raised him, the Speaker of the Suns, was technically his dad after his mom passed away and raised him, but he does not seem to have any affection, any love, or any caring for his adopted son. He really is almost mad that he's back and does not give him a warm welcome, nor does any of the other elves, other than Lorana, give him any kind of warm welcome to begin with. And the last is that we see the comment of Goldmoon makes about the elves and how she believes that it is the elves are trying to flee the world, and that is why she doesn't want to stay with the elves, because she knows that the discs, the leader that she's looking for the discs, would not be with the elves because they are trying to flee the world. So we're going to go ahead and maybe discuss these a little bit more in depth. Those are just the main points that I thought really stood out about the elves. Let me know if you have any other comments or concerns or ideas about other things that we see that are important in aspects of how we are judging the elves at this point. Go ahead and leave that comment down below so I can go ahead and we can discuss that one as well. So out of all of these accounts that we see of the elves while we're with them, the ones that stand out to me the most are the way they save the caravan. So yes, they do save it, but I think it really stands out how they save them and how they kind of kick the people to the curb after they save them and say that they can't, help them beyond that, and they've already done enough for them by saving them to begin with. I think that says a lot. Their prejudice against Tanis and how he is half elven, as well as the fact that his adopted brother and father hate him so much and are disgusted by him and wish that he was not back and are less than welcoming, even though they're supposed to be the ones that are his family. So I feel like that stands out especially. And I feel like the third thing that really stands out is Gold Moon's comment, which is kind of fed off from Raslin, but it's really her comment about how the elves are not trying to be part of the world. They want to be separate from the world and trying to escape the world and what's happening in it right now. So with all of these things that we see, we really get a picture of the elves as cold-hearted people who are very prejudiced and judgmental. We see constantly them looking down on the other races. They save the humans, but they also don't help the humans other than releasing them from the cage and basically dooming them to wander around, hope they don't starve, hope they don't get killed or enslaved again because they have nowhere to go or nothing to do. Like they save them and they say that they've done more than plenty. So they're really prejudiced and really cold-hearted toward these other races. They only really care about themselves. And that's also shown in how they refuse to get any help from anybody. They don't help anybody else, really. They are like trying to flee the world. They are closed off and only concerned with themselves and very much selfish in that way. And so we really see that they even outcast someone who is supposed to be part of their family because they are not fully elven. And all of this just accumulates to how much they look down upon this world that they live in, down upon anything and anybody who is not fully elvish blood. And I think that that's a really big portrayal for them. Like, that's really concentrated in this little sequence, is to see how much they don't like these other races. They barely let in Flint and Tasseloff and Goldmoon and Riverwind, all these things. They did not want to let these people in. They didn't even really want to let Tanis in. Tanis is from Qualinisty. The only reason that they did was because Goldmoon's is a cleric and Gilthana speaks up for her. That is the only reason they let any of them in. And they make a comment about how Kinders were never allowed in, and the barbarians were certainly not allowed in, and the humans were barely let in, and Tanis was barely let in. They really try and differentiate them and say, hey, you should be grateful we're letting you in because this never happens. Which is very, very sad, especially when you find out that the dwarves really built a lot of the main structures in their woods that they live in. That back a long time ago, when the dwarves and the elves were actually friends of some sort. We don't really know exactly what happened or when this was, but it's ancient history, we know at least. that they used to be friends and that they built these structures for the elves to live in. And they have such high love for these buildings, and they find them beautiful, but they now hate the dwarves who built them in the first place. So they're very, very prejudiced, and it's very reoccurring with how they keep bringing back the fact that the elves are not happy with the presence of outsiders. The only thing that might be a little bit an exception is probably Theros, because he's done so much to help them. But other than that, nobody else is even welcome. So we have two different roles I feel like the elves play in this portion of the story. Obviously, if in the rest of the book or in book 2 or 3 they come back, they might have a different role. But at this point, the role of the elves is about twofold. We've got the first one, which is to show the that the prejudice that they have is keeping this world in a worse space, in a worse place than it could be, because of their prejudices, because they refuse to help anybody or to be helped from their looking down upon these people. They are helping the enemy by segregating the races. So obviously the other races are not going to be exempt from this. We'll have to see once we get more in touch with those people, like the dwarves and the humans, specifically in different cities, like the knights and things like that. There's different kind of humans. But specifically the elves at this point are letting their prejudice get in the way of helping or being helped. And that is allowing the segregation of the different races to weaken the good portion of the people of Krynn. It is weakening the defense that they would have against the Draconians, against the Hobgoblins, against this Lord Verminiard, and the dragons. The evil side, or the bad guys, are being helped and are in a better place because these elves are not going to join up and help these other races. Instead, they're going to flee. Instead, they're going to just run away from the problem. They are not going to stand and fight, and they're not going to join forces with anybody else who wants to fight, which means that everybody is now weakened. We are now segregating. We are now destroying these bonds that we could be making, or that they could be making, in order to defeat the evil that is plaguing this land. And that is going to make it extremely hard for the ones that are trying to fight to defeat these enemies. It is making Krynn weaker. So we see at this point right now, we see that evil is winning, in a fact that the elves are not willing to help anybody else. Instead, they want to hide and be cowardly and only think of themselves and make excuses as to why they should not be helping others, and letting the evil and the bad guys sort of having an advantage right now, especially over the humans, because the humans are the main focal point, other than these elves that we've seen, the main focal point of who's being attacked. And then we've got the second portion, which is just as important, if not more so, is that we see Tanis's upbringing, and we see where Tanis has come from, and we see Tanis's background. We get some more insight on Tanis and what he stands for, where he comes from, what's going on, and we see what he has overcome in order to become the leader of this group. We see that he really is an outcast from humans and from the elves. We now see the elven portion of this outcast, and it's almost worse than what the humans have done upon them, because even though, yes, the humans don't necessarily like him, he found a home in Solus, which is mostly humans, and has Strum and Caramon, and I guess we could say Raslin, and Tika, who are all humans who really love him and are friends with him and have no problem with him being half-elven. And we've got where he's even won over the barbarians of Riverwind and Goldmoon, who, especially Riverwind, was very, very prejudiced to begin with. So we see that he has kind of, even though they don't really accept him, he has found an acceptance in this human world with people who love him. But the elves, he has no such thing. Other than Laurana, we see no love at all for Tanis. Even the people who were supposed to be his family and who took care of him really throw him to the wind. They rather never see him again. They're not obviously going to condemn him to die or to kill him or anything like that. And when he was in need, when he was a baby and his mother died, he was related to the Speaker of the Suns, who was his mother's brother, I believe. So he did take him in, but he never loved him, never really showed him kindness or fairness of any kind. He was kind of just a mouth to feed. And you really see that with the way that he is treated when he has come in to talk to the Speaker of the Sun, and he is rejected pretty much. And Gilthanas, who's supposed to be his brother, who he said he was once really close with, really rejects him from the second he's seen him. When we meet him back at the tavern and getting caught, whatever, he really wants nothing to do with Tanis. Nothing. And we do learn a little bit of that is because of Laurana's love for him. But, again, you would think that it wouldn't be a big deal because this is his brother. I mean, not actual brother, which is why Laurana can have her feelings for Tanis. But you'd think that if he really cared about him, it shouldn't be a big deal. But he doesn't want his sister loving a half-elf. He doesn't have faith in Tanis to take care of her. He told her before, we find out, that he had said, hey, you're picking the wrong person. He's half human. He's going to ditch you for his human side. It's not an okay thing. And having all these harsh judgments on Tanis' character and the fact that he would just leave Laurana in the dust. And yes, he does kind of do that, but it's not like he's doing it on purpose, and it's not like he was unfaithful to her in... Well, I guess we can't really say that. We don't know. With the fact that he's in love with somebody else at this point, we can't really say that he was unfaithful in that way, considering it seems that they are engaged. So, but I'm saying when he comes back, he instantly is telling her, hey, this is not the way it's going to work anymore. Things have changed. He's not purposefully trying to hurt her, and he wants to do it in the most honorable way possible of letting her down. So, it's kind of a rocky shore a little bit on that one, but you would think that before that all happened, before he left for whatever reason that he did from the elves, that Gilthanas would have his back and not care that he is half-elven, but he did not specifically want that for his daughter. And that is the sad portion that I think we see here is how much sadness and grief and pain Tanis had to grow up with being so close to people who were supposed to love him and to take care of him, and really they just didn't give him any love. They really didn't care about him at all other than Laurana, and that's the only real kindness that he got, is that she had fallen in love with him, and the only real happiness that he really had at this point, which is also, again, why we can see why he wouldn't want to come back. So we really see these two portions, these two reasons for the elves at this point. We're going to see if they have any more important roles as we go along in the books. But so far we see that these are the two main reasons that the elves really contribute, what they really contribute to at this moment. If you have any more comments, questions, concerns, anything else about the elves and their role, or what you think about them, or how you feel about them, whether you think that they have another purpose or anything else, go ahead and leave it down below in the comments. And let's go ahead and get started on the next topic. The next one I really want to talk about is chapter 6 specifically, but not like just the events, but I want to look at it as in like the choices that the author made and why it would be this way, as the structure of it, as well as the like point of view and things like that, because it is a very, very short chapter. It's only a couple of pages, and it's a very impersonal encounter, but we see it as an outsider from Tass's point of view. So let me really quick look at chapter 6, just because I want to see exactly how many pages, but I think it was only like 3 or 4, maybe, if that. Oh, okay, almost went right over it. So I've got on mine is page 324, which is only a half page because we've got the drawing on here. So 324, 325, 326, and 327. Yeah, so, and 327 is not a complete full page. So we basically have 3-ish pages compared to the chapters before it and after it, with them being more closer to 6 or 7 pages, we really see it as like a blip. Like you could see when I was going through it, I almost skipped it because it's such like a little blip that just goes over. That's how short of a chapter that chapter 6 is. Now, for the point of this little small chapter, I think there is that's the question that we need to ask, is like, why is it this short of a chapter? Why did they do it? And why did they put it from Taz's point of view when it's really mainly focusing on Tanis and Laurana and their relationship? So why not have it from Tanis's point of view? So first, let's go ahead and start by discussing the shortness of the chapter, as it being just a couple of pages long. I think it really is supposed to be, now there could be several different answers, so if you have anything that you'd like to add or say, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. But I think the reason that they have it so short is because they're trying to emphasize this moment in time. And because the authors believe that it is super important for us to really see this blip of time. Now, at this point, we don't necessarily know why it is important, because after this moment, and a little bit at the dinner or whatever, after he broke up with Laurana, we don't see her. We don't know if she's going to even be continuing into this story or not at this point. But they really make it seem like this is an important thing to look at, this breakup that he has, as well as the importance of, I believe a lot of it is to deal with the struggle that Tanis has between his two sides of him, his human side and his elven side. Because we also get the mention that Kitiara was someone who he fell in love with, who was a human. So we see in this moment his dueling natures and how he wants to do good by Laurana because he does love her, but also because he loves this other woman, he knows that he can't be with her. And so we see the bit of the struggle inside of Tanis, because he wants it and yet he's fighting it. And he's trying to do right by her, even though he's not really, wanting to let her go. That's why, that's not probably why he was wearing his ring for so long, is because he didn't really want to let her go. But now that he is confronted with her, he knows that he can't hold on to that promise that he made her, because he has this other side to him, this other conflicting person that is in his life. Not only that, but we also see a little bit of the elven side that he fell in love with. This is the elven woman that he fell in love with and who has tied him to the elves. Because out of everybody that he has seen, they all don't like him, they don't want anything to do with him, but we see that this is one person, one elf that loves him and wants him, and you kind of see a little bit of her personality as well as her true love for him. So we're kind of focusing both on the tensions that Tanis has and the acceptance that Laurana has for him, which is kind of, and we see the dual nature. Sorry, I'm kind of like trying to think of where I was trying to go with that. The dual nature of Tanis and the struggle that he has, the struggle to commit to one side or the other, because he feels like he has two different halves to him. And we also see that when he gives the ring and she tosses it, we see this little bit of hope, because we don't get a final ending, because Tas is there to then pick up the ring and put it in his bag. And so we kind of have this unfinished business at the end, is that even though they believe that they've covered it, that ring is still in effect, because Tas has it and Tas is with them. So it's not like it's going to be lost forever and this promise is now over. We kind of get the ending where it's kind of like, oh, well, maybe it's not quite so finished, because Tas picks it up. So I feel like the reason they keep this short and simple is because, for whatever reason, this struggle between the two women, or this looking at Laurana, or whatever it is, and sorry, my lighting is kind of changing because my outside has kind of gotten darker and lighter and darker and lighter. But these little nuances between this exchange and what this exchange means for Tanis as well as Laurana is important. For whatever reason, we don't know at this moment, but they really focused on it by really carving it out, being like, hey, this is its own section. We are going to draw attention to it. And the title is Tanis and Laurana. So it's really like pointing neon signs to like, let's look at this point, what is going to happen, this is important, kind of thing. So we're going to see what we feel like as we move on. But for the shortness and the sectioning off of this one little event, I believe that is the importance of it. And we will just have to see as we continue to go if we do understand what the importance of this was. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is the fact that it is from Tass's point of view versus Tanis's point of view, especially with Tass being someone who is hiding in the bush and not someone actually engaged in the encounter. It's like it's from his point of view, but he's a secondary character to the events that are happening that he's watching. So the reason that I think it's from Tass's point of view is I'm not totally sure 100%. It's kind of hard even for me to be like, after I kind of digested it and try to think about it, is that I'm not totally sure what the purpose was. Unless the authors wanted there to be a bit of a removed feeling to the encounter, where we didn't want to feel Tanis or Laurana's feelings too closely. We didn't want to be too linked to them in this moment. They wanted us to see it from a third-party point of view who was not judgmental, who was not part of the situation, and who had no idea what was going on. So it was more of just an observance, and we just see and hear what's happening, and we kind of get a little bit of like these dynamics because of the things that happen, as well as the way that they react, and Tass sees them reacting and things like that. So we have this bit of remove, and we kind of know what's going on and the struggle that Tanis is having by his expressions and what he's saying, and we see the outrage that Laurana has because of what she's saying and how she's reacting, but we don't really get the in-depth view because we're not from either of their perspectives. And maybe also because the author didn't want to pick one of their perspectives to judge the other one. So maybe they wanted it to be where they didn't want one perspective or the other to tint or to change the reaction that the reader would have by having the close encounter with someone who has strong feelings of the matter. So that could be it. As well as also could be the fact that Tass picks up that ring and puts it in his pouch, which is what leaves it to be kind of unfinished in the end. And the reason that the authors want us to be from Tass's point of view is because otherwise we would not know that Tass picks up this ring, because Tanis and Laurana believe that it's just lost in the woods now and they've left it. But it's really not left because it's in Tass's pouch. So maybe that's the whole reason that we got it, is that because we wanted it to, the authors wanted us to know as a reader that Tass was present. Tass saw this, so that also gives us the information, as well as Tass ended up being the one to pick up this ring, and that ring obviously will be coming back, since otherwise why else would he have picked it up when this is a symbolic of an important portion of Tanis and Laurana. Did that make any sense? I really hope it did. Made sense in my brain, not so much on the spewing I'm trying to get of telling you what I feel and think about it. So let me know what you think about the whole chapter in general and these ideas in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. Okay, deep breath. Next thing we're going to get to is kind of the more nitty-gritty stuff that I always like to have a little bit in there, where we get kind of down into the more of the specifics. And one of the specifics I want to do is talking about Fizbin. Now, I'm not really going to analyze him. That's not what this is about. We don't know enough about Fizbin, I feel like, to even analyze him as a character at this point. Because even though it's been there for several chapters, he's kind of there and not there. Like, the focus isn't always on him unless he's doing something. And so I don't feel like we know enough about Fizbin to really try and talk in depth about his character, not like some of the other characters where we have a lot more information from a lot more of the book to talk about. But I do want us to draw attention to the glimpses that we see of Fizbin. And that's the whole point of me bringing this up right now, is not, again, to analyze, and I don't really have anything to say about it, other than that I love Fizbin, because of these glimpses that we see of him are just amazing. But what I want us to do is just to be aware of them, talk about them a little bit, and then as we move forward and progress through the novel, then maybe we can talk about them more in depth and see exactly who he is or whatnot. Because at this point we only have a couple of things that are happening, and he's really mysterious. And so as we draw attention to these couple of things that I'm going to talk about, then we'll be able to go forward through the story with keeping these things in mind, and then maybe be able to revisit them. Okay. Probably like, what are you talking about? I'm talking about the glimpses of the bumbling idiot versus it actually seems like he actually knows what he's doing. We've got 3 different points here that I've got that show it in these chapters, that most of the time he's an idiot, but then there's these couple of glimpses where he's not so much of an idiot anymore. For example, we've got that he knows these powerful spells. Yes, of course, he's like not always using them in the best way. Or he keeps saying, oh, what is that spell? The 2 times that he's cast these spells. But they're powerful spells. So the first one we have is the fireball. And the second one we have is like that web spell. Which the web spell is really ill-timed. Like, it happens after the battle. The whole time he's just like, what's that spell? What's that spell? And then finally he gets it when everyone's done. So it was basically useless. But we feel the same way about that as the fireball, except the fireball actually seems to do something. So obviously it was not a good timing because it set the cart on fire, and everyone was trapped in then with a cart on fire. But it was a really powerful spell, and not only that, but right after he cast that spell, then Sestin, I think is the Gully Dwarf's name, raises his axe and hits it again, and it busts open. So in the end, it kind of did what he wanted it to do, even though he acted, I'm pretty sure he acted like it was supposed to open the cage itself, the fireball. But it seems like without that fireball, he was not going to be able to open that lock with that that axe, because it was a crappy axe. So it kind of still worked in the way that he wanted. So to me, it seems like a bumbling idiot moment. But there's just a hint there that it's like, did that actually do what he wanted to do? Let me know if you're on the same page with that. Maybe, maybe not. The next one is on page 321 in my book, where he's pushing all the swords away when he's talking to the elves. And let me just really quick read this little bit. It's just real quick. I think it's better than me just describing obscurely what I'm talking about. So this is when the Speaker of the Sun tries to rip the medallion right off of Goldmoon and is burned. And he crumples to the ground, and then it says, "Stop this nonsense," said the old magician in a strong, stern voice. Fizbin tottered up to the rostrum, calmly pushing aside the sword blades as if they were slender branches of an aspen tree. The elf stared in astonishment, seemingly unable to stop him. Muttering to himself, Fizbin came up to the speaker, who was lying stunned on the floor. The old man helped the elf to his feet. "Now then, you asked for that, you know," Fizbin scolded, brushing the speaker's robes as the elf gaped at him. "Who are you?" the speaker gasped. What was that name?" The old magician glanced around at Tasselhoff. "Fizbin," the Kinder said helpfully. "Yes, Fizbin, that's who I am." The magician stroked his white beard. "Now, Solastron, I suggest you call off your guards and tell everyone to settle down. I, for one, would like to hear the story of this young woman's adventures, and you, for one, would do well to listen. It wouldn't hurt you to apologize either." As Fizbin shook his finger at the speaker, his battered hat tilted forward, covering his eyes. "Help! I've gone blind!" Raslin, with a distrustful glance at the elven guards, hurried forward. He took the old man's arms and straightened his hat. "Ah, thank the true gods," the magician said, blinking and shuffling across the floor. The speaker watched the old magician, a puzzled expression on his face. Then, as if in a dream, he turned to face Goldmoon. So, yes, most of it he's acting like an idiot, like the whole part of him being blind, from his hat falling down. Couldn't remember his name, he had to ask Tasselhoff for his name. But he brushes those swords aside, and it seems like nobody can stop him. And then he's lecturing the speaker of the sun, and gets him to focus on Goldmoon. So, even though he's acting like a complete moron, he lectures this leader of the elves, and the leader of the elves listens to him and turns to Goldmoon. So, seems like there's something going on there to me. And then he also does, at the last chapter where he mentions that someone's following them, and that he could see them following them, and no one believes him until the end of our chapter. We finally get confirmation that yes, someone is following them. So, just things to keep in mind, stuff to look at. They're very small, minuscule little tidbits here and there, which is why I know it's kind of hard sometimes to catch them, which I've read this book several times, which is the only reason why I have caught them, because the first couple times when I read it, it still didn't catch me. I was always like, kind of glossed over them. But then as I've read them more and more, and now especially as I'm trying to talk to you guys about it, I'm really paying attention and trying to focus on these little things. And I'm like, yeah, those don't seem like just innocent things to me. What do you think? I know maybe you've only read it once, maybe you need to go back and double check them or whatever. Maybe you didn't notice them as you read through. Just let me know what you think. Any comments at all, I would really appreciate it. Whether it's that you did notice, that you didn't notice, that you cared, didn't care, first time reading it, 20th time reading it, I want to know your opinion based on how you've read it this time. Alright, now the last thing I want to talk about is, again, nothing I really have too much to say as like the reasoning behind it. It's more of something I want to draw attention to as we set up for the next our next episode and our next set of chapters. I want to talk a little bit about the Sla Mori, or also known as the secret path or the secret way. And the thing is that I find interesting is that if it's a secret path that no one's supposed to know but the elves, why is there like a whole battlefield with humans and things like that in this on the way there? And why do they get attacked by draconians? If it's supposed to be so secret, why does it seem like there's a lot of things happening on this secret path? As well as there's two different times or people that have been drawn to be suspicious of these people in this latest chapter as we're going in. The first one is Gelthanis. Strum and Caramon are very concerned about him and what it actually means that he survived when none of his other comrades did, and obviously he hates Tanis, so they're a bit concerned about him betraying the group and not really sure where he stands. So kind of heavy portrayal of possible betrayal on Gilthanis' portion, as well as Eben. We find him being the only survivor of this battle that they come across, and he's hidden underneath some bodies, so it kind of looks like he could have just been forgotten. But again, we have this kind of suspicion that's cast upon him. We're not really sure how he survived this battle when nobody else did, and it's obviously they can see that it was this crazy battle with a lot of things happening. A lot of draconians came by right after they arrived, so we know that it's unlikely that he would have survived. Not impossible, but unlikely. So it's really he's cast in a very suspicious light because no one is really sure as to why he should have survived when it seems like he should have been killed with the rest of his comrades. He's a very happy-go-lucky kind of guy, personality, from what we've seen so far. He's like, okay, let's go, as long as we're fighting the bad guys, kind of thing. So we have these two different characters who seem suspicious in their own way and in a similar way as well, because both of them survived attacks that killed off the rest of their comrades. So let's go ahead and see where this suspicion is going to take us in this next set of chapters, and let me know what you think at this point. Do you think that they're suspicious? Do you trust Gilthanas? Do you trust Eben? Do you trust either, one, both? I, for one, I'm going to be honest, I don't totally remember exactly what happens directly after this. It's been a little while since I've read him, so I don't remember the specific details that are to come. And at this point, I trust Gilthanas mostly. I'm not 100%. Like I said, I don't remember exactly what happens. But I think I'm more on board with Gilthanas. Eben does make me a bit suspicious. He makes me a little nervous, especially because he's so happy-go-lucky. It's kind of odd, and he's just like, okay, let's just go wherever we want, like wherever you guys want to go, let's go. Like I'm bored. I'm suddenly in this party. Seems a bit weird to me. Not gonna lie, seems a bit weird. So we're gonna see what happens with Eben and what happens with Gilthanas and the group as we go ahead through the next set of chapters. The next ones are going to be chapters 9 through, I had it written down somewhere, and now I don't see where I had it written down. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, because I always do it in increments of 5. So we're going to do 9 through 13, which for my book is pages 350 to 410 through 410. So 350 through 410. And then after that, we'll only have a couple short chapters left. It looks like 14 and 15. So only going to be 2 chapters and a little ending thing after that. Oh, yep, 2, and then there's like the epilogue. So we're going to have a very short thing next week, or what I might do is combine these couple of chapters and start the next one. I'm not sure yet. I feel like maybe we should just on that episode just go ahead and finish up this book and then talk about the book as a whole and kind of see where we're at with the ending and things like that. So I think that's what we're going to do, is even though it's going to be a short set of chapters, we should just go ahead and then discuss the book as a whole, see how we want to get going for the second one, kind of set us up, transition a bit, and discuss it on a bigger level, kind of review the book. If you have any comments or concerns about that, go ahead and let me know. Since it's a couple weeks in advance, you'll be able to let me know how you feel about that. I'll also mention it in the next episode, what we're going to do, but yeah, so let me know before then if you'd rather me just go right into the next one. But I do think we should spend a little bit of time kind of wrapping up this book on its own, and maybe it'll just be a shorter episode, maybe not. We'll just have to see how that lesson goes. So again, chapters 9 through 13 for the next Dragonlance episode. I really hope that you are enjoying the book and that you're excited to be getting close to the next book. Go ahead and leave any comments, concerns, questions on anything that we talked about down below. I'd be happy to have a discussion with you and to hear what you're thinking and feeling. I really, really hope that you're able to share those thoughts and opinions with me, even if it's just to agree and why you agree or anything else like that. All right, I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll see you in the next video. See ya!